You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant, and today's episode is how generative AI is transforming the search marketing world. I think everybody, is, kind of interested in AI. I'm talking to 20 or 30 brands a week, and it is top of mind for them, but a lot of people are just struggling. How do they use it? What is the get started point? What should they be using it for? Are they behind? Are they ahead? What's the future of it looking like? And, so kind of the topics, if I rip through them here, generative AI in search. We're going to tackle the future of search marketing. We're going to tackle winning in the new search ad landscape. And then we're going to kind of jump into, if we have time, some Q1 2023 eCommerce and Google Ads CPC metrics. And to help us walk through all of this is a great friend, partner, supporter of the network, Udaan, over at NetElixir. We've been doing quarterly calls on what's the impact of the, since the pandemic hit back in 2020. It's just been fun to see how those things have evolved. But in this case, it is this massive impact from quarter to quarter of AI and generative AI and what's going on. So Udayan, thanks for your time today and jumping on. I'll kind of kick it over to you. If you want to do a brief intro on yourself and NetElixir, that'd be awesome. And then we can kind of jump into this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast, Aaron. It's always such a pleasure to really have a conversation with you. And I was just sort of thinking before just getting in, whenever I speak with Aaron, there are a couple of insights which really inspires me. I think so. I really wanted to give a shout out to Aaron for hosting me on this event. My name is Udayan Bose, and I'm the founder and CEO of NetElixir. We are one of the 27 agencies to be a part of the Google Agency Leadership Circle. We have been an expert performance marketing agency since 2004, so almost 20 years. This is our 20th year now. And very fortunate to work with a wide range of e-commerce customers, mostly in the retail and the direct-to-consumer side, and really helping them grow their business. In terms of differentiators as to what NetElixir brings to the table, we have built our own AI marketing platform. It's more of an AI, analytical AI marketing platform, which helps us to identify those highly curated audiences that we can then, just through one click, target through various channels, whether it be Google, Meta, and so on. So that's just a quick introduction about us. We are headquartered in Princeton, New Jersey. We have an office in India. We have an office in London. Currently work with about 120 plus e-commerce companies, mostly mid-sized, anywhere about $50 to $100 million annual e-commerce revenue. And very excited to really for the next few minutes as I share our conversations on generative AI.
Yeah, awesome. So let's jump in to that first topic, which is, generative AI and how it's transforming search. Would love to hear your thoughts, and maybe it's that kick it off with the explanation.
Yeah, it's
what is generative AI?
Yeah, and sorry if you hear my dog barking in the background. That's probably one of the contributions of the COVID and the post-COVID times.
I love it.
So in terms of Gen AI, I think, if I were to compare this, and I believe I had presented in one of my previous webinars with BWG, it can be compared to probably the printing press, or it can be compared to Netscape browser getting launched, because I think fundamentally it has really changed the entire industry landscape forever. And I also believe very firmly that at this point in time, I don't think anyone really appreciates the quantum of change, just because we have never really dealt with a technology as powerful or even remotely as powerful as Gen AI. And as a result of which, I think with all humility, I must say that whatever I am presenting, it's based on a very thorough first-hand understanding of all the experiments we have done at NetElixir, and that's pretty limited at this time because we don't know as to how this will really keep on evolving. When it comes to the search marketing space, Aaron, I think there are 2 or 3 areas that I really want to talk about. The first one is how does it really disrupt or change the classic landscape? The second part is really almost like just discussing or potentially almost like thinking about as to what are some of the potential impacts or consequences in terms of the implications for advertisers when it comes to search marketing. And the third component is we also have to be very clearly sensitive that there is going to be a third-party cookie deprecation on the Chrome browser very soon. And how does that really play in all of this talk? So let me start with the first one, Aaron. And I think each one of them is almost like a hour-long conversation, but I'll just try to sum it up in few things. So I think the first one is, if you think of the search engine results page, right, which we have called SERP, S-E-R-P, we have always thought of it as a two-dimensional page. So you have those results that you mostly get on Google. I mean, 80-85% of all the searches happen on Google, and Bing is a very small part. And effectively, you get a bunch of ads that you see on the top, and then you have the organic listings, and then you scroll to the second page. Now, the interesting part is, I think prior research has shown that less than 20% of the people even go to the second page, right? So all the action is happening on the first page, and 80% of the people really choose not to go to the next page. So I think from that, the reason I even mentioned this is I think it just shows as to the customer is really preferring something which is called, I don't know, I want to get something very quickly. I think speed and the time is of essence, and we don't really have the patience to keep on really browsing through multiple pages of search. So I think the speed and am I really getting the relevant information on the first page? If not, the chances of me going to the second page is pretty minimal. So that's, I think, the first incident. The second part that I wanted to also share, it's a pretty known stats that almost 500,000 searches literally every day happen to be brand new, right? So aggregated, I think there was this report in 2022 which showed that 15% of all the searches on Google in the previous year, which is 2021, was brand new. So those searches have never ever happened on Google ever, right? So 15%.
It's pretty amazing, right?
Huge
15% on an ongoing basis.
Ongoing basis. So that's what I think I really wanted to highlight, that particular number as well. And the third component is this is more of a little bit of a thought experiment. Think of your laptop screen, right? So it is two-dimensional. You basically are able to see those results, etc. What if someone built a third-dimensional cone or a funnel from the laptop screen, which essentially points at you, right? It's probably as creative as I can get. So it's essentially putting that two-dimensional page on a three-dimensional pond. So is there an opportunity there? Is there an opportunity for people to choose their path and really follow the path which may actually pop out of that page? Again, in a very, in my limited creative capability, I think that's what I can think of. Now, if you really look at these three things, 20% of the people or less go to the second page of search. So that the first page becomes all important. And as a result of which, Google has tried anything and everything pretty much to monetize the first page. And as a result of which, you see that the first page of search, in certain cases, unfortunately, becoming too cluttered with ads stuck all over, right? You have the shopping ads, specifically on the retail side and so on and so forth. And then, unfortunately, the organic listings where Google does not really make money directly gets pushed all the way down. That's, I think, the first part. So just think of it purely as a user experience as it used to be when maybe 10 years back or 5 years back and now. Do you see that there is a little bit of a dilution happening in terms of user experience? Are we really getting almost like thrown ads at us rather than what we really want to find out, right? Compounded with the fact that I don't want to really go to the second page. So I'm really looking for a result very quickly. The second part I think is also interesting is 15% of the searches are brand new. So Google also happens to be a massive magnet, and it is keeping on attracting this thing. And that's the reason, that's where the Google flywheel has been built, because you're constantly getting this brand new group of people who are not really people, group of search queries which get sort of searched in this thing, which shows the potential of the human mind and the human creativity in terms of asking questions. The third component is also interesting. What if the solution of this two-dimensional page can be a third dimension, which is called the conversational search? Let us say Adam does not really have time or patience, or he's unable to really find those relevant results scrolling down in Google. So why can't really Adam have the flexibility, or let us say the freedom, to go ahead and start chatting with Google or that Google page, or what I'm just putting Google as a name in this case, very well, maybe Bing. And so that's the part which I think is, and what if he really wants to take a different path, not going to the second page, not really scrolling down? What is the third option? The third option is engaging in a sort of series of chat or conversations, which really leads him down to the what he's really or want to get to. So that's what is essentially happening with
which is fundamentally changing search.
Completely.
Fundamentally, yeah. Right?
So
because it's giving me an answer, and then maybe it's a little left of center. And so I now refine it. And instead of going back to the search bar and typing in something and then having to filter through ads and all the other answers, now it's giving me a refined answer. Right? It goes back to this, that traditionally Google was a search engine, and ChatGPT is an answer engine, right? That's
exactly. So I think effectively when it comes to us to let us have a conversation, right?
Yeah.
I think unfortunately, over the years, Google page had become more of an advertising billboard rather than having a conversation, right? And somehow the relevance component dropped quite dramatically. So that's the unfortunate part. I'm pretty sure Google has its own set of challenges as well as priorities, and their team is the smartest team, arguably, in the world. And from that perspective, they've been working on it. But I think I feel that conversation part was a little missing from that. And that's what this ChatGPT and the Microsoft or the Bing combination really connected it. So effectively, Aaron can, rather than scrolling down the page, decide to have a conversation, or what is called the chat, essentially with Bing, right? And through that, he can really get to his answers a lot more quickly. He can really find as to what he is looking for, a process that is typically called the prompt engineering. So the smarter his question, the better the responses would be. And the third component is saves an inordinate amount of time. Rather than sort of filtering through, going through every website and figuring out if I was getting something, I'm able to really get what I need without really having to take the time and the pain to really go through every website and figuring out and trying to figure out. So it also simplified the entire process through a part of conversation with a very smart friend who really exactly knows what I'm really looking for answers. So that was one. The second part, which I believe, Aaron, also needs to be highlighted, is the importance of that personalization as well. With each question or prompt which Aaron asked, the engine became smarter, right? So it was able to give me responses which is specific for Aaron. If I even really have the same purpose, maybe the question that I ask would be different from Aaron's, and the response that I get is different, right? So there is a high amount of personalization in the chat process. And suddenly, I can vouch myself. In the last 3 months or 4 months now, I have been very active user of ChatGPT. And honestly speaking, I have been able to find whatever I have really been looking for a lot more quickly compared to just scrolling down the search bar infinitely and trying to find it out. So the personalization part, I love it. The second part is it's coming up with responses which is relevant and smart rather than just trying to sell me some ad, which I'm not interested in. I think it's pretty smart. And the third component is I save a lot of time. So that's an end of it. So if you really put all of these together, Aaron, the search world has suddenly been introduced to a new word called the conversational search, which is a lot more personalized search or conversational search and so on. And that is something which we are betting would do two things. One, it would substantially expand the entire search universe, which has been a set of, let us say, I put something on Google, it sort of gives me those keyword searches and all this stuff. It would expand the opportunity because how would it expand? Primarily because in many cases, and in other countries and so on and so forth, English may not be the native language, for example, Aaron, right? And in many cases, sometimes the way that they search and the keyword that they write may not be very English, be grammatically right and so on and so forth without any sort of this thing. So that, I think, suddenly gets taken off if it becomes a conversation. And specifically with the multilingual capability, it just goes to a different level. So suddenly I can really have a conversation, find the answer, and it suddenly expands the scope. If 3 billion people in the world are using search now, that 3 suddenly becomes 4, which is 33% jump over the number of people who are searching. So it really expands the addressable universe quite dramatically, or it would eventually once people start using it. The second part also is it really can potentially become a part of our life. Part of our life in the sense, I think one of the smartest move, in my opinion, with Microsoft has made is integrating ChatGPT everywhere, whether it is Microsoft Word document or the MS Office and all that stuff. And soon I'm pretty sure they would integrate it with Teams. So everything, it will be there everywhere. I would say LinkedIn would have the same capability and everything. Extremely smart move, because what they have done, where they have said they have tried to map out my life, right? Typically a day in the life of Aaron. And they know that if somehow they can really, just by easy accessibility, they can really go ahead and impact habit formation, Aaron. If you're so used to it, your friction point comes down. It becomes much more habituated. It just becomes easy for you. That also is one of the reasons why it will expand the entire search category into something a lot beyond search. And that's what I really wanted to emphasize as one of the key points. I don't think it is appropriate to even call it search at this point in time. What would it be asked? It could be chat, it could be discovery, it can be, I don't know, anything that you really sort of engage in your life. It just becomes more of an assistive mechanism, which really reduces your friction quite dramatically across languages, across the globe, and so on and so forth, and just makes the entire, what we call the search process, a lot more humane, a lot more friendly, a lot more inclusive as well. And that's what I am excited about, because that will really expand the opportunity quite dramatically. So that's, I think, just a quick point of view.
But I think of what you're going back to, earlier, right? Google makes money via ads and putting them in front, and they put more and more and more ads on the search results page. And now we dump in an answer engine. What happens to the revenue?
Exactly.
Right. Because we're not going to want to, right now what we're accustomed to, and where a lot of people, you and I see it, right? Yeah. A lot of people we interact with that aren't in the digital space don't even see it. They see results page. And if they look, they could see sponsored. Right. But in most cases, they're just seeing a whole list of results that they're going to go pick from. And sometimes they click on the sponsored ad. Sometimes they click on organic search ranking, but they're at least used to looking at a list of options. And now if that format changes, and you're just giving an answer and you're interactive, but you can't cram 7 ads into that completely takes away from the experience you're looking for.
Right. So I'll give you a slightly more idealistic answer on this one, Aaron. And honestly speaking, at this point in time, I don't think any model has really been developed. Microsoft obviously is testing out some of the model descended, but I think that will not really hold very long. That's the cost per click model. So I think the idealistic me thinks that at the end of it, when you are doing search, forget about Google or forget about specifically the monetization model, you are really looking for a solution to your search query or problem that you have, right? You're just looking for a solution. From that perspective, maybe there is an opportunity for maybe a different model, which is more of a cost per action, something maybe a CPA model or cost per result, or which really has been relevant. Maybe, I don't know, a lot more difficult to track. The second part also is, I think there may be an opportunity also, other than the cost per outcome or cost per result or whatever, cost per action, whatever you call it, there may be an opportunity for really almost like a connected ecosystem with this at the center, where you may not be essentially making money right from here, but I think through the entire connected ecosystems, you'll probably make more money, incremental money. So there is an incrementality concept. How would it happen? I don't know. But I am very sure that the companies, given their brain power like Google and Microsoft, are definitely trying to figure it out. Because in the conversational search, the classic CPC model, again, would be very interactive, right? That is, in fact, I would probably actually sort of claim that that was one of the reasons why conversational search which why it will become popular is the relevance and the lack of advertising that gets thrown at you. So from that perspective, somehow if there is a tie with the outcome of the results, or separately, if it's a different monetization model, which is based out of maybe a bigger ecosystem whereby I have been directed to a website from the conversational search. I don't know. I mean, just at this point in time, just in the spirit of brainstorming. But that is something which I would think is a possibility. But having said that, who knows as to what would be the monetization model. So what happens to the classic CPC model? I don't think it is going away anywhere. The only thing which is likely to change is if conversational search actually takes off in a way, and so far it seems to be taking off in a way which exceeds expectations of anyone else. In that case, will there be any tie-in from the advertising that you are doing in the standard CPC with the results that you are able to see, or the website which are delivering results to you in the conversational search? And that's, I think, one thought. The second part is, if you really look at SEO, the current rules effectively would need to be completely changed. So those are the things which I think is all being discussed in multiple places at this point in time. But one of the things I hope does not happen, and I'm pretty confident it would not happen because that would really kill the essence of conversational search, is any interruptions to the ads. So because then, I mean, Aaron has better things to do. He'll sort of just drop off and not come back. So that I don't think is going to happen. So it's just the monetization avenues which would emerge, Aaron, from this, I'm very confident would be more responsible, and it will be different from what we have been so far used to. But that's where I think I have a big confidence on human ingenuity in coming up with those value points and really sort of trying to monetize when there is value created.
Yeah. I mean, if we jump onto the digital marketers side, and I agree with you, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I do believe that Google will continue to make money, and being the smart people that they are, will find different ways to make money. They're going to win in the end. I do believe that. I think they kind of dropped the ball a little bit, getting behind this whole thing and letting ChatGPT come out first, and neither here nor there as to, maybe they were their heads dying on their own tool, which they tried to release. But if we look at just the time, so I spend my days talking to everybody in the digital space, and a good chunk of those are digital marketers. And it's there are a few jobs over the past 2.5, 3 years that have been impacted as much as the digital marketers. And then, I think when we were talking before, you said, yes, it's very tumultuous times. Right? And everything from, customer acquisition cost to going up, the deprecation of third-party cookies at some point in time. And even if they're not gone yet, we're being told every other week that they're going away. KPIs, focus of executive teams on performance, decreased visibility, everything around there. Like what should they be doing? And then we talk about AI, and it's just like they didn't have enough going on already. Does this help? I can see right now, I talk to a lot of people, they're exasperated. I've got a very small percentage that are full-blown jumping in, and their indication to me right now is it is increasing productivity by 15%-ish. It's taking care of a good chunk of the first, 80%, but that was the easiest. And now the last 20 is hard. And so it's not like easing it by 80%, it's closer to like 15. But still they're wondering, what do I do? What do I do with this? How do I win with AI? I'd love to hear your thoughts there.
So it's a complex, as I mentioned earlier as well, almost like a tumultuous overall landscape. So I compare it with the classic geological, like plate tectonic theory, right? So suddenly all the plates are sort of matching up, and in many cases, what we are seeing is at this point in time, the shift is too big for humans to even comprehend as to how to really make the most of this shift, right? Because most of the people, I think we tend to really look into anything on the future with very clearly strong focus on our past filters as such, right? So just because this has happened earlier, this is how we should treat it. So that's the reason I think we are limited in our capacity as human beings to even comprehend as to how to maximize. That's, I think, the first part. The second part, I think, is we are, as marketers, actually, I would have probably really, I would say, lack of any other word, blame the entire performance marketing channels that have really emerged, which have focused the entire marketing onto performance marketing, or ROI, and CPA became the big metrics and so on, and everything was around that. So as a result of which, we understand this concept and we are obsessed with this concept of productivity tremendously. And if you really look at it, I don't know, I mean, typically a CMO, their average tenure seems to be 1.5 to 2.5 years. Productivity is a lot quicker. It's easy to show, let me implement these tools and done, right? Whatever, 14, 15%, 18%, 20%. So all of those numbers there, but it is productivity measurable. I can show some of this stuff. It helps my bonus at the end of it. So which I think is pretty being very direct about it. The other part also, as you mentioned, just because the quantum of change is huge, right? Once is the post-COVID struggles that we are in terms of we are comparing constantly with the COVID bump, with the post-COVID bump. The second part is with the cookie deprecation, et cetera, looming large on the Chrome, and iOS happened in 21. That itself is complexity. And the third component is the consumer behavior changing quite dramatically. Quite dramatically. I mean, probably I would emphasize that's, I think, one of the big reasons why the conversational search has become a lot more popular now, just because people don't really want to be subjected to advertising nonstop and so on and so forth. And they expect the level of personalization as well. So you are really looking at massive changes. So from an advertiser or a marketing perspective, I think those are some of the things that I have to deal with. I know my next line will not really inspire a lot of excitement, but still, whenever a change of this nature or this magnitude happens, it takes about 2 to 5 years for it to settle down, Aaron. I'm sorry, I'm probably being very conservative out here. So you really look at whether it is the printing press and the first Bible getting printed way back, like 1500s. And then you really have the Netscape. A lot of people said that the internet is a bad thing, will go away. And suddenly it took an Amazon and Bezos suddenly leaving DE Shaw and going in and just. But I think there was still a span of about 4 years where people were trying to figure it out, like 94 Netscape and whatever. It took a couple of years or 3-4 years for people to understand. So I would think that this, given the magnitude of the change, it will probably take at least 2 years. So by 2025, things will settle down and people will be able to figure out as to how can we really benefit, or what can we really do to tap into the power of this incredibly, insanely powerful thing called AGI. So till that time, what should the marketers do? One, and I know I am again sort of going to be a contrarian out here, it's extremely important to build a culture of experimentation and fail faster.
Yeah.
If you don't fail and if you really don't experiment, you will not learn. And the problem in this entire, I won't experiment, I'm stuck to the past, is the speed of change is exponential now, because AI is an exponential technology by far. This is like a multi-exponential technology from that perspective. So if you're not really sort of willing to change your company culture and experiment and dive in, you just will not be able to compete, right? And experimentation is easier than done, because the number of, for every 10 experiments which failed, there probably would be at most one which will succeed, or 20 experiments failed. And most people don't really have that level of. So I think the ability to create those mini experiments or small experiments, but more importantly, a culture of experimentation, getting the blessings of your board becomes extremely important, and really documenting everything. That's I think one. The second part, again, I would make a very bold statement. I think this is a great opportunity to go anti-hierarchy, anti-silo. Because if you really look at the organization, there is an innovation director or whatever, innovation VP, etc., and there is a chain of command, right, step by step. Now, we really have to think of the org structure, or rethink of the org structure, because innovation and ideas can reside anywhere. And everyone, whether they be an analyst or whether they be an EVP, they have access to the same tools. So companies really have to encourage a much more flat overall hierarchy, which really inspires people, as many people as possible, to really jump in and contribute and share their ideas. And they have to provide that psychological safety to really go about coming up with my ideas and be perfectly okay if those ideas fail. So that's, I think, the second part. The org structure has to be rethought of. It should not be a stifling effect. It should probably more of an, I don't know, enablement or maybe an energizing sort of a part in this entire thing.
I'm a big fan of a digital R&D budget. I've talked about this quite a bit, which is, in R&D, right? You have failure and you test and fail, and most of what you do fails. But you learn a lot, and that helps you get to something that works. And then 1 out of 20, 1 out of 50, 1 out of 100 experiments works.
Exactly.
But you only got there because you had the willingness to fail, but you also had the support and the financial, both from an executive level, but also financially to go do all of that.
Right. Absolutely. So, and other than that, just add on to this entire concept of democratizing these idea generation process, right? I mean, just because you are an analyst or maybe someone junior in the company doesn't mean that you don't have ideas, right? Give them that safe space to go ahead and come up with those ideas. I'll give you an example. I came back from our India office yesterday, and there we host every year something called an annual innovation contest. So we sort of create those teams. And this time the topic was, how can you utilize ChatGPT to really draw this? Some of the ideas, there was no way for me to really come up with those ideas or anyone in the senior team. And it was just absolutely incredible. So I think it's important for us to really look at Gen AI and a hugely assistive tool which can really spark creativity across the organization. The only request I would have for the exec management is give them that psychological safety and that space to experiment. And please communicate every day that it is absolutely fine for them to fail. And you'll be amazed the quality of creativity that sort of comes up in this entire process.
I mean, I love it from the standpoint of pushing this out to everybody, because even if the average is 15% increase in productivity, if every department, which I think we'll have a chief AI officer in most large companies. Once you push above 100 million, you're probably going to have a chief AI officer, because it's going to touch I did a cool podcast with Todd Hostfeld over at Colgate-Palmolive, and around what is the org structure going to look like, and that is, I can't see it not happening, because it's going to touch everything from R&D to recruiting, right? To the HR, to product development, to project management. And every one of those people are sitting, inside, their own job, and they know all the idiosyncrasies, and they know all the pain points, and know things that take longer and are more difficult. So they're going to naturally try to solve the worst part about their job first, right? This is one thing I don't like to do, right? Yeah. Help me solve this. And all of a sudden it's taking care of that one part I don't like to do. Now I enjoy my job more, but also I'm more productive.
Right. Yeah, so I would just say that you're talking about chief AI officer. I would probably, with a little bit of a tongue in cheek, I would sort of say that we call it the CFFO, which is Chief Fail Faster Officer. Oh, because I think innovation is now an AI is almost like an enabler, and innovation is going to be direct outcome of how quickly you're able to fail and how much you are able to encourage failure. So we are calling it the CFFO, Fail Faster Officer.
I like it.
So let me get to the final part, Aaron, in terms of the advertisers. So what should the businesses do, right? So I think that's, we have talked about as to fail faster and creating this culture of experimentation, etc. There is also a word of caution that I would really want to put it out there, specifically for the smaller businesses who don't have capital to really go ahead and do 10,000 things and cannot really have tremendous access, specifically the small businesses. Let us say $1 to $100 million, whatever it is, right? So effectively, what should they do? I think it's extremely important for them to do a couple of things. One, they really need to lean on something called, I think the concept, and not only them, I think even the larger companies, they need to build their own knowledge ecosystems. Now, knowledge ecosystem, what is happening is, since AI is democratizing the entire thinking process, may not entirely reside within the company. I mean, as we have seen, Google with its tremendous sort of brain capacity and brain power still sort of is struggling to catch up with ChatGPT and the Bard and all the stuff, right? So what chance do you have if Google is struggling? And it's really, really struggling to really catch up to the speed at which Microsoft is moving forward, right? So you really have to be able to identify through a process of iteration, through a process of, really having some collaborative structures, etc., as to who are the people who are smarter than you. I would say smarter is the wrong word, more informed about this particular space than you. When I say smarter is a direct correlation of how much has that company experimented and failed, right? So effectively, I think you have to build that ecosystem that you can rely on. And that's the part which I would encourage every business, not only small businesses, big and small, really need to be a part of. Which means that we have to fundamentally make a change, and a fundamental change in how we really operate. If I were to talk to any e-commerce company, mid-sized e-commerce company CEO, right? Let us say they do about $50 to $70 million e-commerce revenue. 95%, if not 100% of their time is spent just firefighting and doing the day-to-day stuff. Now that, unfortunately, in the AI world will not really work effectively for the CEOs. Primarily because the ground on which you are standing was pretty steady. You knew that Google was a rankable channel. You know that Amazon advertising was starting. Some changes, but it did not really need you to really spend more than 2 to 5% of your time in thinking about what is the new innovative ideas, the creativity, doing things differently, and so on. And you could really spend a lot of your focus in terms of the day-to-day work and activity. That I would almost like make it mandatory for the CEOs should go up to 10%. 10% of the ideas should be only focused on the future, right? What would really enable you to lead from the future? And you should be very comfortable in terms of failing there. Again, I have really been using this word fail faster too much. But that's important because where you are today, if you focus on the day-to-day stuff, Aaron, as if it is happening today, I can absolutely guarantee you 100% that doing that is a sure shot way, almost like a guaranteed way of failure within the span of 12 to 18 months. So you have to carve out at least 10%, ideally 20% of your time, only focusing on innovating, building your knowledge ecosystem, innovating. And so your entire work as you do as a CEO, or when I say CEO, I'm talking about any CXO, any senior exec or decision making, that has to change quite dramatically as well. So that's the part I really wanted to emphasize. And it becomes even more imperative for the small businesses like 50, 70, $100 million, primarily because, they don't have access to infinite resources or large resources which the other companies have as such. So that was my only other addition to what I wanted to share. Yeah.
What is there when you guys, you're living in the space every day, dealing with tons of brands. You're sitting there on the cutting edge of trying stuff out.
Right.
Is there hey, here's the 5 things you need to think about. This is the top formula that we think about on, from this, new search ad landscape that's going to be popping up?
Yeah. So I think at this point in time, whatever we have done, again, in all humility, I think has been done based on our experimentation part as well, or our NetElixir team's capability of experimenting. So like on the SEO part, you can do quite a few things, very basic. We have come up with some hacks and so on. Like one of the things, very simple, we don't know as to how SEO and the conversational search would really, what are the factors that would influence that? But we know very clearly that if you really carve out those prompts, you can literally create an input for the large language models, and hopefully in the long term can have some impact. So one of the things that we have been encouraging people to do is ask as many questions about your brand or company to ChatGPT, right? And you'll be surprised to see as to what ChatGPT comes back as a response. And so I had mentioned a simple thing that earlier I had said marketing department, but I would think that every person in the company should spend 30 minutes to 1 hour just asking questions about the company to ChatGPT. And in certain ways, informing as well, ChatGPT as well. I don't know whether it will work or not, but the concept of large language models is basically sort of learning on the fly. And still, I think GPT-3 is based till 2021, GPT 3.5 also, I think the data set is not really absolutely updated. So, but I think as and when those dataset updates happen, then hopefully the feed that you are providing to ChatGPT can help influence the results which it comes out with. When maybe one of your customers is asking about your brand, right? So again, one of the simple hacks that we can do. The second point which I wanted to emphasize is while productivity captures are the most immediate because it is quantifiable, it's worthwhile for you to use that cue to really go ahead and try to map out each and every process within the company. We actually did it at our India Business Center last week, where we really took all the functions and really mapped out each and every task which is getting done. And then you challenge your team, what are the ones where ChatGPT can save time and how much? But other than they're coming up with an opinion or a point of view, you actually have to physically do it, right? So you are able to quantify that and understood. I mean, obviously at this point in time, since they are new doing that process of using ChatGPT, may not be the exact number, but the thing is you are starting off base and the saving can only go up or the productivity can only go up. And that's the process I have seen firsthand can really energize the entire company around dramatically, right? Because you are communicating one thing very clearly. You must have to accept the fact that there is a lot of concern or even fear that I lose my job. It will take on my job. So we are making a statement that let us collaborate to creating a system which helps the company overall. And you really have a contribution to make, essentially in sort of helping us go to the next level. So I would actually make a counterpoint that by including the entire team and challenging them to come up with those, I would say productivity hacks, for a little better word, through that entire process mapping part, you are essentially making them feel a lot more secure as well. So that's the second part and the productivity part. The third and the final thing I would want to emphasize is also the importance of really unleashing creativity within your team as well. So, for example, we went through the first part, there was this creativity bump. In our case, when we really mapped out, we're a much smaller company and we just about 140 people between our Princeton office and St. Louis, and we have London and India. So out of 140 people, our overall was about 22%. So 22% was the productivity lift that we are able to get. But then I challenged the team, and we're still working on that. You have saved this amount of time. Can you utilize this time to come up with new use cases? And it's too early for me to really comment because this all happened Thursday. So exactly a week back. But I think some of the things that I'm starting to get are the things which we would have never even thought of, just because our brain power was so fixated on just trying to build in efficiency. We never thought of that there is an alternate path which can really unleash this creative option out there. So that's what I'm excited about. I don't have any quantified thing like the 22% increase in productivity that I can share with you. But it's just a different way of running the company. You really have to make everyone feel included, and you really have to empower them to fail faster. And it really, some of the recommendations that comes up with on the productivity increase as well as hopefully the creative additions as well can take your company to a different level altogether.
Yeah. So we've covered, if we kind of pull the key takeaways, AI, it's here and it is the future of where things are going. We're going to have a significant impact of this conversational search on traditional search, right? The other things are, how is that going to affect, Google's, focus on, revenue? If that's dropping, how do they work it in? I'm sure they're going to figure it out. And that's going to be personalized, like you were saying, to you and me specifically. So they'll find a way to make money. What about Bing? A lot of people are saying, hey, should I shift a huge focus, right, over to Bing? We've seen, them increase, pretty significantly. What's your thoughts on Bing? And then we're almost at the end here.
So I am pretty bullish on Bing and Microsoft. I always have been. So honestly speaking, primarily because when any company leads with innovation, you should always sort of pay attention to that company. And I think Bing has really shown very clearly how to really lead with innovation. The reason we have recommended our clients to invest maybe about or increase their Bing budgets by about 15 to 20%, and that's what we have already recommended our clients to do, is just because there is a shift. There is very clearly a lot of searchers who are coming to Bing now. And we are seeing that they are staying there and engaging with the different activities, most importantly, the chat part of Bing. And as a result of which, if I'm really sort of so comfortable with the chat in Bing, do I really even have to go back to Google to do a search? Or Bing search may not be the best at this point in time. But still, I mean, the time I would save probably at this point in time is proving to be a massive draw. So my recommendation for the advertisers would be at this point in time, test out about 15 to 20%. Bing always has been an afterthought, at least for the last about 10, 15 years for the agencies and the advertisers. I think it no longer should be an afterthought. It should be treated as a separate individual channel. And there should be a lot more effort in terms of figuring out Bing as a channel as such. And the third and the final component of the Bing component, as I mentioned, which is leads with innovation. I think when we are having this conversation, maybe Aaron, about 6 months later, I think the percentage share with Bing has maybe quite dramatically different. Despite the fact that Google launches Bard, I think, it's the question of, I was discussing this with a very famous Wharton professor. Actually, we have a conversation, a fireside chat coming up with the Professor Jerry Wind on the 18th of May, Aaron. Jerry also happens to be a board member for a company called Amelia, Amelia. They are also a competitor with ChatGPT, so very similar capability. And we were discussing, I think at this point in time, I think what AGI will do, which we are excited about, it will really democratize this innovation and it will redefine those industry equations of the industry landscape forever. And I think Bing definitely is going to be an important player. Microsoft is going to be an important player holistically as a group. So you should definitely pay attention to Bing and Microsoft.
Awesome. Well, this has been a ton of fun, Udayan, and I think we have to have you back. I don't know if it's quarterly, but this is it's moving so fast that I just think we need to stay on top of this. And I know that just from, the brands that I'm talking to, they want that kind of, bellwether of where they're at compared to everybody else. Mm-hmm. And what is, and I think between, the amount of people you work with and that we talk to, we can help them feel really good about where they're at, or, help light a fire and let them know they're a little bit behind. But any other key thoughts as we get to the end here?
My thoughts, somehow, I think the key takeaways are probably, I think, just a very broad 3 things. The first part is AI is here and AI is for good. So rather than fighting it, embrace it with both your hands. And that's, I think, the first one, because that's the thing. So you really have to rethink. The second part is it can be a tremendously democratizing force for the entire organization. So I think it's important for you to stop thinking hierarchically and really thinking as to how can you really empower your team to really innovate and fail faster. And the third and the final part is I firmly believe that the entire search marketing ecosystem, or I would say largely the digital marketing channel ecosystem, is going through actually a massive, massive shift as we speak. The only way for you to figure out as to how to really succeed in this thing is to jump right in and do stuff. And for that, you really would need to build your own knowledge ecosystem and the knowledge community, which can help you do that, which is sort of bold enough and future forward enough, which I think can really help you, because just by focusing on the day-to-day stuff at this point in time will not really help you even survive, I would say, 18 months down the line, because AGI moves very quickly and you really need to as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Udayan, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks everybody for listening in. That wraps up this episode of the Digital Deep Dive. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Adam. Really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.